Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Hamas official says ready for Gaza ceasefire, urges US President-elect Donald Trump to pressure Israel. Sri Lanka's ruling coalition wins election in landslide. President Dissanayake thanks people for the victory. At the COP29 climate talks underway in Baku, leaders say climate talks not fit for purpose and need reforms. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi sets off 150th birth anniversary celebrations of Bhagwan Birsa Munda, unveils key projects for the tribal community. After much reluctance to ceasefire talks, Hamas Political Bureau member Bassem Naim has said on Friday that the group is ready for a ceasefire in Gaza and has urged US President-elect Donald Trump to pressure Israel to end the aggression. Attempts at talks started early November, with the sides pushing for an end to all hostilities, the release of thousands of hostages and the return of all the displaced people to their homes. Earlier, the Qatari Foreign Ministry, which was acting as a mediator during the ceasefire talks, made an announcement that it had stepped back from talks, saying it would resume once Israel and Hamas show willingness and seriousness. In a move towards resolving the ongoing tensions, senior Iranian official Ali Larijani engaged in discussions with Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri to explore ceasefire possibilities in Lebanon. The significant diplomatic interaction was made public through a post from Iran's embassy in Lebanon shared on the social media platform X. The negotiations mark a crucial step in mediating conflict and seeking peace in the region, reflecting the efforts of both nations' leadership. With Donald Trump poised to assume office in January as US President, diplomatic overtures appear to be accelerating to address escalating Middle East tensions, signaling a do-it-now or face-it-later approach. This sentiment was echoed through significant back-channel meetings and proposals aimed at easing the multifaceted Israel-Hamas-Hezbollah conflict and broader regional instability in the region. DD India's Akhilesh Suman reports.
US media is reporting that President-elect Donald Trump's team is engaging with key persons on the diplomatic front. According to the New York Times, on November 11th, tech billionaire Elon Musk, known for his close ties to President-elect Donald Trump, held a meeting with Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Saeed Iravani. The meeting, described by Iranian sources as positive, lasted over an hour. The New York Times reports the encounter as a critical first step in fostering US-Iran diplomacy under the incoming administration. The Musk-Iravani dialogue hints at a departure from the more aggressive policies of the Republican establishment. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has previously expressed openness to mending ties with the West, adding further weight to this engagement. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is pursuing last-ditch efforts to mediate between Lebanon and Israel. On Thursday, US Ambassador to Lebanon, Dorothy Shee, presented a draft truce proposal to Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri. Sources indicate this is Washington's first formal written attempt in weeks to halt fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. The US Embassy in Beirut confirmed ongoing diplomatic efforts, while Israel's energy minister highlighted an increasingly promising outlook for a ceasefire. In a parallel development, senior Lebanese officials signaled Hezbollah's willingness to withdraw forces from the Israeli border under specific conditions. This renewed diplomatic push comes amid relentless violence. Israel has intensified its military campaign in Lebanon alongside its operations in Gaza. Key to any ceasefire is adherence to UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which calls for Hezbollah to withdraw fighters and weapons from border areas. The US and other powers view this resolution as the foundation for peace, though its implementation remains fraught with challenges. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
US President-elect Donald Trump has been selecting his top team. Meanwhile, since winning the election last week, with 4 names announced recently, Trump picked 3 members of his legal defense team, including lead attorney Todd Blanche, to serve in the senior roles at the Justice Department. Trump nominated Blanche, who defended him at the hush money trial this year, and will serve as the Deputy Attorney General, the second highest position at the Justice Department. Earlier, Trump announced the name of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the United States' top health agency. In a post on X, Kennedy vowed to work to end chronic disease, clean up corruption, and provide Americans with the data they need to make informed decisions, vowing to Trump that he would work to make America healthy again. Kennedy ran for president in this year's election as an independent before dropping out in August and endorsing Trump in exchange for a role in the Republicans' administration. Trump has also nominated former U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Jay Clayton to serve as Manhattan's top federal prosecutor. Clayton, a lawyer at Sullivan and Cromwell who specializes in mergers and capital raising, is a political independent who developed a reputation while at the SEC for trying to forge consensus with the agency's Democratic commissioners. President-elect Donald Trump later announced that he plans to select North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum as his nominee to be the Secretary of Department of Interior. He has been North Dakota governor for 2 times since 2016. He's a mature U.S. politician having a business background in software, real estate and venture capital. Holding a Master's of Business Administration degree from the Stanford University School of Business, he is an old Trump ally. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on Thursday praised Argentine President Javier Milei for the job he's done in his home country, calling on Milei to make Argentina great again. Trump was speaking at a gala at his Mar-a-Lago, Florida retreat, which was attended by Argentine President, who delivered a speech before Trump's comments. The fall in Argentina's country risk a measure of investment exposure is crucial to the country's access to international credit. This comes as the country prepares to renegotiate a massive $44 billion loan agreement with the International Monetary Fund due in December.
Javier, I'd like to congratulate you on the job you've done for Argentina. Your speech was beautiful, but the job you've done is incredible. Make Argentina great again. You know, MAGA. He's a MAGA person.
On to Asia now. The alliance of Sri Lanka's new leader Anura Kumara Dissanayake secured a landslide victory as it secured a 2/3 majority in the parliament. The leftist coalition, the National People's Power, has performed exceedingly well as compared to the September presidential election. A report.
Sri Lankans on Friday handed Anura Kumara Dissanayake-led National People's Party a thumping win in a snap general election, as it crossed the majority mark of 113, giving its new president greater legislative power to pursue his reform agenda and policies to fight graft as the country recovers from a financial meltdown. The leftist coalition has performed exceedingly well as compared to the September presidential election, where it had secured only 42% votes. The coalition has performed well across the island. The votes secured by opposition parties led by Sajith Premadasa and former President Ranil Wickremesinghe have been relegated to the sidelines with a hugely reduced verdict. Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, which romped home to a landslide victory in previous parliamentary elections, has been pushed to 4th position, with its vote share dwindling to just 3%. Earlier on Thursday, voting was held across the island with a turnout of about 65%. With inputs from Dr. Ahmed Muin Faruqi in Colombo, Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, next updates from COP29 summit. So, at the ongoing COP29 summit in Baku, India highlighted that the impacts of climate change are increasingly becoming evident in the form of one disaster or another. Intervening on the behalf of like-minded developing countries, India stated that extreme weather events are so frequent and increasingly strong that the impacts are being felt by the people of the global south especially. There is therefore a need for the heightened ambitions on climate action. India's statement firmly asserted that recognizing the historical responsibilities and differences in capacities, the UNFCCC and its Paris Agreement envisage a global response to climate change, adhering to the principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capacities. India's intervention reiterated that the developed countries need to commit to provide and mobilize at least $1.3 trillion every year till 2030. India strongly laid down the point that bringing in the elements of any new goal which are outside the mandate of the Convention and its Paris Agreement is unacceptable. Meanwhile, a group of former world leaders and climate experts are calling for major reforms to the UN COP climate talks, saying that the process is too slow to address climate crisis. In an open letter signed by figures like former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, they urged a shift from negotiation to action. The call came amid tensions at COP29 in Baku, where around 200 nations are struggling to agree on key issues, including funding for developing countries. Leaders like Barbados's Prime Minister Mia Mottley have criticized the summit for lack of progress. However, COP29's lead negotiator Yalchin Rafiev defended the process, saying that it's making progress and will be a critical test for global climate efforts. Still reeling from the devastation of Typhoon Usagi, hundreds fled on Friday as another typhoon Manye bore down on the Philippines. Typhoon Manye threatens yet more destruction as rescuers try to reach people stranded on rooftops by the last tropical cyclone. 5 major storms have battered the archipelago nation in the last 3 weeks, killing at least 163 people and prompting the United Nations to request $32.9 million in aid for the worst affected regions. Elsewhere in Pakistan's Punjab province, the government has declared a health emergency due to toxic smog on Friday, banning construction, shutting schools for another week and moving universities online with a 3-day lockdown possible as per the province's senior minister on Friday. Punjab battles toxic smog every winter as cold air traps dust, emissions and smoke from illegal stubble burning on fields. Friday morning, Lahore recorded an AQI of 1600, becoming the world's most polluted city. All the citizens have been advised to stay indoors. You're watching Did India Live, still to come on the show. India, Nepal, Bangladesh launch the first trilateral power flow transaction from Nepal to Bangladesh. And India all set to take on South Africa at the 4th and final T20I at the Wanderers today.
Our habitats are turning into concrete jungles, and that is concerning. But there is hope even in this grim reality.
Our rivers are like lifelines. They are spaces for humans, for biodiversity. And yes, we have neglected them so far, but really that's an opportunity for us to restore them to their natural conditions.
We now have species that can adapt by conserving the water they have instead of letting it evaporate and being easy to care for.
We have always been farmers in my family. We used to do chemical farming with hybrid seed varieties. But now, we have switched to organic farming with natural seeds.
This embankment will be removed and the river will be widened to cover the grassland up to the wider flood embankments on both the Swiss and Austrian side.
Welcome back. You're watching Did India Live. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to Germany now. Olaf Scholz, Germany's least popular chancellor on record, is facing growing calls within his Social Democrats to step aside and let his defense minister, Boris Pistorius, instead lead the centre-left party into next year's federal election. Germany is set to hold a snap election on February 23rd after Scholz's ideologically diverse three-way coalition of SPD, Greens and the neoliberal Free Democrats collapsed last week following months of infighting. Scholz has said that he wants to run for a second term, and SPD leaders this week individually backed his bid, counting on his experience paying off. despite the party languishing in third place behind the opposition Conservatives and far-right AFD on around 16%, down 10 points since the 2021 election. However, the final decision is likely to be announced at a party congress in January, and this week a raft of lesser-known regional politicians called for a rethink in what would be an unprecedented move akin to that of the US Democrats in July in persuading President Joe Biden to draw up his re-election bid. Germany's return to nuclear power would be the logical choice. That's what the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, said during the COP climate talks in Baku. Germany has been struggling with securing energy since Russia's war in Ukraine started in the year 2022. And the debate about restarting these power plants is continuing to grow. For more on how this could impact Germany's energy mix, we have with us Varda Imran from DW in Berlin. Varda, Germany phased out nuclear power plants very recently. What caused them to approach it in a different way?
I think it was definitely the realization that Germany depended on other countries such as Russia in the last decade or so to secure its own energy. I think that's why German politicians and political parties are ready to talk about nuclear power again after having agreed to completely phasing it out more than a decade ago. Back then, nuclear energy accounted for more than 13% of Germany's total energy, which is a lot. So Germany is the only country in the world to have completely phased out nuclear energy. And so the IAEA, or the Atomic Energy Agency, said that Berlin's lawmakers are probably wondering why they are the only ones to have done so, while the others are thinking of expanding on nuclear energy. While the initial phase-out planned by Germany was to prevent any accidents or threats to life, the decision appears to be short-sighted. The IAEA chief said that nuclear power plants virtually emit no damaging greenhouse gas emissions, which makes it perfect for the phase-out of fossil fuels. Politicians and parties here are looking into the feasibility of restarting these plants.
And Varda, have Germany's energy woes eased over the last year?
I think it has periods where energy supply is stable but very expensive. Then there are periods when the prices were lowered, but then they climbed back up quite fast. Chancellor Olaf Scholz is hosting a summit today for industry associations, trade unions, and big companies. And the topic on the agenda, the biggest topic, is Germany's electricity prices, which are one of the highest in Europe and are affecting industries quite negatively. And not just industries, citizens are still paying high energy prices for heating and electricity as well. So the energy woes are far from over. A 2024 publication in the Journal of Sustainable Energy estimated that Germany would have saved hundreds of billions of euros and reduced their own carbon emissions by as much as 70% if they would have embraced nuclear energy instead of shunning it away and rejecting it. After Russia's war, Germany has been reeling with the consequences.
Thank you, Varda. Varda Imran reporting from DW Berlin. And on to India now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi marked the commencement of 150th birth anniversary year celebration of Bhagwan Birsa Munda on the occasion of Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, or India's Tribal Pride Day. He laid the foundation stone on and inaugurated various development projects worth around $786 million in Jamui district in India's eastern state of Bihar today, aiming at uplifting tribal communities and improving infrastructure in rural and remote areas of the region. Prime Minister Modi also released a commemorative stamp as well as he unveiled a commemorative coin on the occasion, highlighting the important role of tribal groups in preserving India's heritage and advancing its progress. India's Prime Minister Modi also inaugurated an exhibition based on the life of Bhagwan Birsa Munda and rich tribal heritage and culture. PM also inaugurated 2 tribal freedom fighters museums and 2 tribal research institutes, which are intended to preserve the rich heritage and history of tribal communities. So India is celebrating the birth anniversary of Bhagwan Birsa Munda as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, or India's Tribal Pride Day. India's President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar and other eminent dignitaries paid their floral tribute to Bhagwan Birsa Munda at the Parliament premises in New Delhi. Bhagwan Birsa Munda fought bravely against the exploitative system of the British colonial system and spearheaded the movement against British oppression, giving a call for revolution then. A trilateral power-sharing agreement between India, Nepal and Bangladesh came into effect on Friday, marking the start of electricity supply from Nepal to Bangladesh via an Indian grid. India's Minister for Housing, Power and Urban Affairs, Manohar Lal Khattar, jointly inaugurated the flow from Nepal to Bangladesh via an Indian grid. This is the first trilateral power transaction which has been carried out through the Indian grid.
आज एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण अवसर हमारे सामने रहा है कि तीन देशों के पावर डिपार्टमेंट्स ने आपस में एक समझौता किया है, रीजनल कोऑपरेशन फॉर पावर परचेज, सेल एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एंड ट्रांसमिशन, जिसमें नेपाल के 40 मेगावाट पावर, हाइड्रो पावर का एक समझौता हुआ है बांग्लादेश के साथ। तो उन्होंने, नेपाल सरकार ने अपनी पावर को बांग्लादेश भेजने के लिए भारत का जो ट्रांसमिशन ग्रिड है उसका उपयोग किया है। तो एक प्रकार से एक पहला प्रयोग ये हुआ है और इससे तीनों देशों ने जो समझौता किया है, एक रीजनल कोऑपरेशन, एक जो पग है वो उसको बढ़ाया गया है।
The Western Australian Parliament honoured the crew of the Indian naval sailing vessel Tarini for their remarkable journey on the global circumnavigation expedition called Navika Sagar Parikrama II. Led by Lieutenant Commanders Dilna and Rupa, the all-female crew is making history as they navigate the globe in an ambitious 8-month voyage. The two-member crew was seated in the presidential gallery whilst the Parliament proceedings were underway. The INSV Tarini docked in Fremantle, Australia, marked the first major stop on the journey after departing Goa in India on October 2nd this year. After 38 days at the sea, the crew reached Fremantle, where they will stay for 2 weeks to restock supplies and prepare for the next leg of their journey to New Zealand. In a speech at the Parliament House, Sue Ellery lauded the crew's achievement, acknowledging their progress in this expedition.
Lieutenant Commanders Dilna and Rupa are true trailblazers, and their circumnavigation will no doubt inspire many girls and young women to consider roles in the Indian Navy. I want to congratulate them on their significant undertaking and wish them all the best for the rest of their journey. Can I also acknowledge the Indian Consul General for facilitating this visit and for his excellent work in fostering the cooperation between our state and his great nation. I also want to acknowledge the Indian Navy officials for their role in empowering women in their Navy and for fostering Navy cooperation between our two countries.
India's Union Home Minister and BJP senior leader Amit Shah addressed an election rally in poll-bound western state of Maharashtra's Hingoli. The minister expressed confidence that the BJP-led Mahayuti will be victorious in the state assembly elections.
मैं आज कहने आया हूं महाराष्ट्र की जनता को, पूरा देश मोदी जी के साथ है। महाराष्ट्र की हर लाडली बहना एकनाथ शिंदे और देवेंद्र फडणवीस के साथ है। महाराष्ट्र का हर गरीब एनडीए के साथ है। आने वाले दिनों में महाराष्ट्र में महायुति की सरकार बनने वाली है, महायुति की सरकार।
Now let's take a look at other stories making news in India today. For the first time in Assam, a seaplane successfully landed at the Pandu port, Guwahati on Friday after taking off from the Borjar airport. The trial is a part of the initiative by India's Ministry of Civil Aviation in collaboration with Canada's De Havilland company. In a joint operation carried out by the Indian Navy, Narcotics Control Bureau and Gujarat's Anti-Terrorism Squad, 700 kilogram of methamphetamine was seized from international drug cartel in India's western state of Gujarat on Friday. The western state of Gujarat has secured the right to host the Asian Weightlifting Championship in 2026. This marks a major step forward in Gujarat's journey to become a hub for international sporting events. Guru Nanak Jayanti or Guru Purab is being celebrated with religious fervour across India and the world today. It marks the birth of the first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who laid the foundation of Sikhism. This year marks the 555th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. On this day, devotees around the world offer prayers. And in sports, after taking a 2-1 lead in the 4-match T20 International Series, India is all set to take on South Africa in the fourth and final match on Friday. Except for the second T20, India have outclassed South Africa and will hope to continue their form to seal the series 3-1. Indian skipper Surya Kumar Yadav will eye his third straight T20 International Series win after assuming the captain's role. On the other hand, South Africa will go all out to secure a win in the final game and end the series in a 2-2 draw. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.